Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 3 Legend of the Dragon King Part 33 based on novel. So let's start. As such, the Academy spent a lot of money this time around. Xiexie's voice was full of awe. It isn't easy to buy a spot. Most of the quotas are given to the large and influential clans, so it seems that our academy actually has some influence. I reckon that if Wei Xiaofeng were to know we could enter the Spirit Ascension platform to cultivate, his intestines would immediately turn green with regret. Zhong Yangzi turned around and glared at Xiexie. Why do you say so many useless words? Xiexie let out a cold snort. You still haven't submitted? We can fight as much as we want in the Spirit Ascension platform, you can try it for yourself then. Zhong Yangzi's eyes held a cold twinkle in them. He wanted to continue arguing, but Wang Jinci held his shoulder and reined him in. When he turned around, he saw Wang Jinci shaking his head in disapproval. What's going on with him? Lately, Zhong Yangzi felt something suspicious was happening as Wang Jinci had been acting quite restless. He had a vague idea that it was related to the suppression Wang Jinci experienced at Tang Wulin's hands, but that had happened such a long time ago. Unless, he still hadn't recovered from it? Sun with rays. East Sea Spirit Pagoda was incomparable to the one in Glorybound City. This Spirit Pagoda was one of the 18 Great Pagodas, collectively known as the 18 Pillars of Heaven. The towering pagoda was visible from kilometers away. It was at least 100 stories tall, surpassing a height of 400 meters. Even among a forest of skyscrapers, it was tall enough to become a giant landmark. Spirit Pagoda's foundation was in the shape of an octagon and covered a large area. The pagoda then narrowed every 10 layers until it reached the peak of the spire. Even by just admiring it from a distance, one could feel its grandeur. This pagoda branch already looked quite grand. What would the Spirit Pagoda headquarters look like? How majestic would it be? Tang Wulin had heard from others that the Spirit Pagoda headquarters was situated in the heart of the continent, inside Shrek City. That was the greatest city in the entire Federation. As a comparison, the Federation's headquarters was instead located in Bright City, the second greatest city on the continent. After a long flight of stairs, the group were greeted by Director Long Hongshu. Clearly, the academy had been prepared for them. When Long Hongshu saw Wu Zhongkong leading the students up the stairs, he quickly walked over and greeted Teacher Wu. Director Long, Wu Zhongkong bluntly called out, his face as wooden as usual. Long Hongshu said, "Follow me." After entering the pagoda's first floor, they were met with a dazzling sight of the interior. Dark gold stone tiled the floors, creating a beautiful granular pattern. Several obelisks stood tall in the center of the space, propping up a dome over 10 meters in diameter. The most shocking thing, however, was that the dome being held up by those obelisks had a magnificent and colorful mural on it. The mural was resplendent, the scenery painted on the mural seemingly recounting its characters' tales. Wu Zhongkong explained, this mural portrays the tale of the Spirit Pagoda's founder, a legendary soul master and inventor of spirit souls. It tells of how the spirit Aistoluo guided humanity's soul masters in resisting a tide of soul beasts. This is merely a part of the complete mural, that mural having 18 parts in total. The mural within the headquarters depicts the spirit Aistoluo battling the strongest soul beast god, Di Qian. The spirit Aistoluo disappeared after that epic battle, never to be seen since. Yet, it is rumored that he was victorious, for the soul beast god, the golden-eyed black dragon king Di Qian, hasn't appeared since. Although he was only listening to Wu Zhongkong's narration of the tale, Tang Wulin's heart was filled with awe. He could feel the impressiveness of the scene that the mural depicted. Within the soul beast tide, one giant soul beast after another advanced toward the walls of a great city, creating an atmosphere of extreme terror. Floating above the city was a person with shining eyes. Surrounding him were several floating figures. One of them was a beautiful woman in white, another a woman dressed in green. Upon his shoulder was an existence that looked like an ice crystal, a gigantic bear, and an enormous white worm. Brilliant soul rings revolved around his body. That's the Spirit Aistoluo. Tang Wulin had heard the legend of the Spirit Aistoluo Huiyuhao in his childhood. He was the bastard child of the White Tiger Duke of Star Luo Empire, so his name was actually Dai Yu Hao. He was a genius from 10,000 years ago. Despite being an ordinary child, he entered the legendary Shrek Academy and, taking one step at a time, walked the path toward becoming a peak expert, resulting in might that caused the entire continent to tremble. Rumors had it that he had broken through the boundaries of humanity and left for the divine realm. The origin of this rumor was due to the fact that his wife had disappeared soon after he did. Tang Wulin gazed intently at the spirit Ice de Luo when the brilliant figure beside the spirit Ice de Luo caught his eye. A beautiful woman with a pair of gigantic, radiant butterfly wings floated beside the spirit Ice de Luo. Despite the numerous companions beside the spirit Ice de Luo, everyone's attention would be drawn to this couple. Dragon Butterfly de Luo Tang Wutong, wife of spirit Ice de Luo Hui Yu Hao. Look, Wulin, isn't the spirit Ice de Luo's wife beautiful? Apparently, she was also extremely powerful and possessed a formidable soul fusion skill with the spirit Ice de Luo. Combined, they transformed into a supreme existence. In that era, that was the peak. Xie said as he admired the mural. Tang Wutong, it's so similar to your name, Wulin, Gu exclaimed in astonishment. Also, did you notice that Wulin looks rather similar to Tang Wutong? Especially their eyes. No way. The dragon butterfly de Luo's hair and eyes are light blue, while Wulin's are black. How do they look alike? Xie said dismissively. An odd feeling grew within Tang Wulin's heart as he listened to his two friends converse. There really was a feeling of intimacy in his heart whenever he looked at the dragon butterfly de Luo. He shook his head in self-mockery. How can I compare myself to the dragon butterfly de Luo? I only feel like this because we have similar names, that's all. All right, let's go. Long Hongshu's voice roused the 5 students. He smiled and continued, I was just like you guys when I first came to one of the 18 pillars of heaven. I got used to it after a few more visits though. In any case, every single one of the 18 pillars of heaven has a mural worthy of admiration. Wu Zhongkong said, restrain yourselves until you enter the Spirit Ascension platform. You'll only have yourselves to rely on once you enter. Surprised, Tang Wulin asked, you're not entering with us? Wu Zhongkong explained, only soul masters with 4 rings or less can enter the elementary Spirit Ascension platform. Long Hongshu nodded. But you can rest assured, we will be watching all of you carefully from the outside. If you encounter a dangerous situation, it will be your duty to take the initiative to withdraw. We'll give you the full explanation in a bit. With Long Hongshu and Wu Zhongkong in the lead, everyone entered the elevator. Contrary to their expectations, they began to descend instead of ascend. A faint feeling of weightlessness told them that they were penetrating deep underground. As for how deep, it was impossible to tell. The Spirit Pagoda was indeed worthy of being called the #1 organization on the continent. They possessed both the strongest power, as well as the greatest resources. The amount they spent on engineering such a thing was simply astronomical. This elevator had no numbers displayed to indicate the time or level, but at least 3 minutes passed before it gradually came to a stop. Everyone exited the elevator and entered an expansive hall where 19 staff members were present. Behind them were countless metal passages. Long Hongshu took out a peculiar card and handed it over to one of the staff members. The staff member didn't utter a single word, simply gesturing for them to follow. 10 meters down the corridor, they entered another elevator and continued their descent. This time they stopped after 19 seconds, finding themselves in a circular room upon exit. This room was still made entirely out of metal, but hanging on the wall was a giant soul screen. An image of a green world flickered on the screen. It seemed to be a jungle. The staff member turned around and began to speak. There are 5 quotas open for entry to the Spirit Ascension platform. When you can no longer bear the danger, press the emergency distress button and you will immediately return here. Pay attention to what I say next. The Spirit Ascension platform is the fruit of a millennium years of our Spirit Pagoda's efforts and knowledge. We had invested an enormous amount of resources and used our spatial technology to create a different world. Therefore, the first thing you need to note is that the Spirit Ascension platform is a virtual world. To be precise, it is half virtual and half real. This is because a lot of the virtual data relies on your input. However, it can be considered purely virtual within the elementary Spirit Ascension platform, so there is no need to fear for your lives. You can do anything you want in the Spirit Ascension platform, but your main objective will be to survive. Do your best to survive as long as you can. The longer you survive, the greater the benefits you will reap. Secondly, don't believe that it is completely safe in there. Although your life will not be in danger as only your brain waves are active in there, in some extreme circumstances, there is a possibility that your brain waves will be damaged and cause danger to your corporeal body. As such, the moment you face danger beyond your power to deal with, press the emergency exit button, and you will immediately exit the Spirit Ascension platform. Understood? Understood. The 5 students responded quickly. The staff member nodded. As for the rest, you will learn them after experiencing it inside. Today is the first time you will be inside, so you probably won't survive too long, but it should leave a deep impression on you. Prepare yourselves mentally and remember this: don't panic if you run into a dangerous situation. Soul beasts aren't that scary if you know how to react properly. The 5 children were filled with anticipation after listening to the staff members' explanations. Tang Wulin and Ji Yu were especially excited since this was their first time learning about the Spirit Ascension platform. They would enter with their brain waves? Just how would that feel? With a press of a button, 5 metal boxes came out of the wall. These boxes were laid horizontally, each with a person-sized hollow within it, which made them slightly resemble a coffin. Lay down inside. The 5 of them followed the staff members' instructions and laid down in the metal boxes. The boxes were so cold that it snapped their minds into focus. The interior was lined with electrodes, which quickly began to stick to their body snugly. We're going to start now. Prepare yourselves. Relax your bodies and wait for the scan to begin. You may feel some discomfort during the scan, but just bear with it for a moment. That was the last piece of instruction the 5 students received from the staff member before the 5 metal boxes had slowly slid back into the wall. They were enveloped in darkness. A sudden numbness encompassed Tang Wulin's body and agitated his excited soul power and blood. It was as if something was tunneling through his body. His body became paralyzed as the numbness grew stronger. This sort of pain was nothing to Tang Wulin compared to the pain of breaking his seal. In fact, this feeling made him drowsy. A while later, his body suddenly started trembling, rousing him from his drowsiness. To his surprise, he now stood in a brightly lit place. The numbness had disappeared along with the metal box, replaced by a metal device that had a big red button. It was attached to the back of his hand. Is this the emergency exit button? Where is this? Tang Wulin already had an initial impression of what the Spirit Ascension platform would be like from Xie Xie's explanation, but now that he had actually entered, he was utterly shocked. Only now could he understand how much the Spirit Pagoda had poured into their research. He was surrounded by gigantic trees and large thickets of shrubbery. There wasn't a single path in sight. It felt like he had entered an ancient forest. However, what was most astonishing to him was how realistic this place felt. He lightly pinched his own cheeks in disbelief, before examining his surroundings, touching everything, and finally, confirming that it was real. Heavens! This Spirit Ascension platform is just too magical. His heart overflowed with awe. Such a place was simply too magical for him to fathom. Only after a few moments of admiration was Tang Wulin finally able to calm himself down. In the first place, he was already far calmer than his peers. After all, his many years of blacksmithing hadn't been for nothing. He looked down at his hands, confirming that his bracelets and rings were still there. With this, he concluded that everything on him had been brought over to this world. Next, he roused his bloodline power, and was relieved to see the golden scales appear. Everything is the exact same as in reality. Tang Wulin was not the type of person to make rash decisions, so having heard that the Spirit Ascension platform wasn't completely safe, he concluded that it was probably dangerous instead. It was possible to encounter an enemy at any moment, just like Wu Zhongkong had mentioned during combat training. With this being the case, the only thing he could do now was to always be on guard, and to survive for as long as possible. Now that Tang Wulin had a clear objective in mind, he silently crouched down and surveyed his surroundings. His spiritual power had already reached the spirit connection realm, so it was far more sensitive to changes in the external world. The first thing he felt was the breath of life that permeated the forest. Only this could be considered an authentic ancient forest. Where could one even find such a forest in the modern-day Federation? The majority of ancient forests had already been cut down by humanity. In fact, it was said that the continent's greatest forest, Great Star Doe Forest, was only a husk of its former self, left with a meager 1% of its original area. So ancient forests are actually so beautiful. The air is so refreshing. Ah, it feels so wonderful here. Tang Wulin's eyes were twinkling with excitement as he fully absorbed this wondrous feeling. He felt as if he was back in glory-bound city, in a little park beside his home. His cultivation speed had always been faster when he had meditated among the blue-silver grass in the park back then, and it was also there that he had broken through to rank 10, becoming a true soul master. And now, he was surrounded by a breath of life that was several times stronger than the one in the little park back home. In fact, there was actually blue-silver grass hiding below the shrubbery. The blue-silver grass here, however, had flourished much better than the ones he had seen back home. It was extremely difficult for blue-silver grass to grow past 15 centimeters in height, yet the grass here had grown well over 30 centimeters in height, reaching up to his calves. Sitting down from his squat, he gently ran his fingers through the blue-silver grass around him. At the same time, he subconsciously released his martial soul. A strand of blue-silver grass had quietly appeared among the surrounding thicket. The aura of life he sensed grew stronger in an instant, as if all the plants in his surroundings were joyously cheering. Tang Wulin immersed himself in this quiet forest that was brimming with life, feeling everything within. The fifth region of the Spirit Pagoda's elementary spirit ascension platform. What is he doing? Long Hangshu was pointing at a screen that was displaying Tang Wulin sitting down with his eyes closed. He was leaning against a tree with his mouth slightly curved, a pleasurable smile gracing his face. No matter how he looked at it, Long Hangshu felt that this child was taking a nap. Tang Wulin had such a wonderful opportunity to enter the Spirit Ascension platform, yet, he was taking a nap. Wu Zhongkong said, he seems to be contemplating something. Don't forget, his martial soul is the blue-silver grass, and it's rare to find such lush blue-silver grass in the real world. Look, he seems to have comprehended something, he has already released his martial soul. Long Hangshu finally realized what Tang Wulin was doing. That's right, this simulation of the Great Star Doe Forest is really suitable for plant-type soul masters to cultivate in. It seems that this child's perception is quite good after all. Wu Zhongkong nodded in approval. Within the class of 5, Tang Wulin was not the most talented student. He didn't have Xie Xie's twin martial souls or Zhong Yangzi and Wang Jin's soul fusion skill. He didn't even have Ji Yu's skillful control. Yet, despite all of this, Wu Zhongkong paid special attention to this child. Wu Zhongkong felt that there was something special about Tang Wulin, as if he was a block of unpolished jade. Although Tang Wulin's cultivation speed didn't seem particularly fast, Wu Zhongkong knew that Tang Wulin's rate of improvement was actually the fastest out of his 5 students. Originally, there was an enormous gap between him and the others when he had first entered the academy, but in the last few months he had drastically changed and now stood on equal footing with his peers. The most crucial aspects to his success were his tenacious personality, remarkable perception, and high spiritual power. If his bloodline power also continued to grow, then perhaps he would be the most outstanding among the 5 students in the future. Sun with rays. After landing with a jolt, Zhong Yangzi steadied himself and took in his surroundings with eyes full of amazement. This is a forest? Zhong Yangzi found himself in a vibrant forest filled with the lively cacophony of insects and songbirds. The overwhelming vitality of the forest went against his dark attribute martial soul, making him feel uncomfortable and discordant. After the initial shock, however, he was astounded to discover that the forest's aura had caused his soul power to circulate more quickly. I need to prepare myself to fight at any moment. Without the slightest hesitation, he released his martial soul, a pair of black wings unfurled from his back. His martial soul was the powerful shadow phantasm eagle, so his soul fusion skill with Wang Jinsi was called the Shadow Eagle Dragon. Unfortunately, their cultivation was still too shallow and their soul fusion skill incomplete, allowing Tang Wulin to defeat them so quickly at the class promotion tournament. That was right, Zhong Yangzi was still unconvinced. He refused to believe he was weaker than Tang Wulin, and the only reason he had lost during the tournament was because he had been unable to display his full power. He truly was bitter about it. HMPH. You three better not let me find you. With a flap of his wings, he shot up, just high enough to begin rapidly climbing a tree. He figured the best course of action for now was to secure a high vantage point and survey his surroundings. It would be best if he could reunite with Wang Jinsi. With their powers combined, they would mutually augment the other's strengths. After transforming his hands into eagle claws, he quickly climbed to the top of the tree. At a height of about 10 meters off the ground, his view of the surroundings drastically increased. The tree he had chosen was the tallest one in the area, allowing him to view an astonishing scene. It was an ocean of green as far as the eye could see. There was simply no end to it. With clear skies and boundless greenery, the giant treetops gave him a feeling of indescribable, vibrant vitality. It was as if this world was simply an endless spring of life. This really is so lifelike. He had heard about the Spirit Ascension platform previously too, but despite his family having the means to send him, he hadn't been able to enter due to his insufficient strength and young age. What's that? Zhong Yangzi gazed at the vast sky. A large, green bird was soaring high in the skies, but with a flap of its wings, it suddenly veered and headed straight for him. Such a pretty bird. Zhong Yangzi was moved, but at the same time, arrogance appeared within his heart. I already have a chance to engage in real combat so early on. Let's see just how strong the soul beasts are in here. 2 soul rings appeared underfoot while his spirit soul, the Dark Devil Eagle, appeared on his shoulder. Zhong Yangzi pushed off the tree trunk and used the rebound to spring into the sky. He spread his wings while his second soul ring started to shine. Second soul skill, Eagle soars the sky. From the very beginning, he had already unleashed his most powerful soul skill. He hadn't had a chance to use this soul skill during the class promotion tournament as he needed to coordinate with Wang Jinsi and their team. Having lost without being able to display all of his abilities, only the heavens knew how sullen his heart was. Now that he was in the Spirit Ascension platform, the first thing he wanted to do now was to vent his frustrations. His body shone with a brilliant, black radiance, his figure becoming illusory. As the Dark Devil Eagle fused into his body, his wings enlarged and his speed suddenly tripled. A powerful aura burst from his body, and like a black arrow, he pierced toward the large, green bird. An eagle's cry resounded through the sky. Eagle soars the sky increased both his speed and power, combining to create a powerful attack. Zhong Yangzi had always believed that this attack-type skill was unequaled among his peers. After all, a single use of this skill consumed over 50% of his soul power. His evaluation of his skill had greatly diminished, however, after encountering Tang Wulin's Golden Dragon Claw. The tyrannical might of the Golden Dragon Claw was simply too terrifying for him to face. Furthermore, his skill was a close combat type, which increased the risk of injury. The gap between him and the bird rapidly closed before his eyes. The large, green bird was also frightened by how quickly Zhong Yangzi had reached it. It spread its wings once more and flapped them, shooting out several green wind blades at Zhong Yangzi. As the wind blades shot toward Zhong Yangzi, the bird issued a sharp screech, like it was flaunting its power. Bang! Although the wind blades were smashed apart in the collision of black and green, they had succeeded in stopping Zhong Yangzi's momentum, forcing him to spread his wings. This is bad. Zhong Yangzi cried out within his heart. He still wasn't strong enough to fly with only his wings. He depended on Eagle soars the sky to stay aloft for a period of time. When he smashed apart his opponent's attacks, it had forced him to halt and start falling. He quickly glided down with his wings spread. He really was clever. From the bird's 5-meter wingspan, he had deduced that the bird wouldn't be able to pursue him any further if he took shelter in the forest. However, his expression turned ghastly in the next moment. One green figure after another appeared from the treetops. Wind blades shot at him from all directions from a multitude of large, green birds. How did things turn out like this? This was the only thought running through Zhong Yangzi's mind as he pressed the emergency exit button. Only at that moment did he finally understand the profound look the Spirit Pagoda staff member had given them before they had entered. Darkness covered his eyes while his surroundings became tranquil. All of the attacks that had been flying toward him disappeared. He felt his body cooling down as light poured into the box. "Get up." Long Hangshu spoke without a single trace of happiness. It was only after he sat up that Zhong Yangzi snapped out of his stupor and realized he was back in the Spirit Pagoda. The screens in the room switched scenes at that moment, letting Zhong Yangzi know that he was actually the first one out. Upon realization, his face immediately blushed. He embarrassedly crawled out of the metal box. Wu Zhongkong remained silent, simply pointing at the chair beside him for Zhong Yangzi to take a seat. Taking in a deep breath, Zhong Yangzi calmed himself. He was still a bit dazed, a side effect of entering the Spirit Ascension platform, but he could clearly remember everything that had happened in there. His gaze suddenly changed when he noticed the flock of green birds soaring in the sky on one of the screens. They seemed to be searching for something. "Isn't that where I was just now?" There were no less than 100 birds on screen, covering the clouds and the sun. Their bright cries resonated throughout the skies, bringing more green birds to join their flock. He swallowed a gulp of saliva when he realized that the flock of birds were actually searching for him. If it had been the real world, he would have already been dead even if there had been 10 of him. Long Hangshu only spared him a glance before continuing to watch the events occurring on the screens. Wu Zhongkong didn't give him any words of criticism either. True combat experience was best gained when experienced for themselves. Zhong Yangzi began to ponder over his mistakes. His eyes displayed strong excitement. Apart from being embarrassed, he found that he really enjoyed entering the Spirit Ascension platform. It was extremely realistic inside, and he was determined to survive even longer next time. Xie was quietly and cautiously traversing through the forest, shifting from the shadows of one tree to another. Compared to Zhong Yangzi, he was far more vigilant. This was because he had heard countless stories of the Spirit Ascension platform's forest when he was a child. He knew that danger lurked everywhere in this forest. If he wasn't careful, then he would quickly turn into one of the many corpses that littered the ground. However, danger also meant opportunity. If he was able to kill a few soul beasts, then his spirit soul would gain some strength in the real world. His spirit soul was actually a metal spirit soul that had been specially manufactured by the Spirit Pagoda. When he had fused it with his Light Dragon Dagger and Shadow Dragon Dagger, a mutation had occurred. Of course, this mutation was nowhere near as large as the one Gold Light had experienced after fusing with Tang Wuling. Xie's metal spirit soul had received a small mutation. As long as he had enough spiritual power, he could absorb 2 spirit souls and fuse them together as one. At that time, this was the only 100-year spirit soul, so his family had to pay the equivalent of a 1,000-year spirit soul for this 100-year spirit soul. Thus, his Light Dragon Dagger and Shadow Dragon Dagger both benefited from this spirit soul fusion. Unlike his first 2 soul skills, he also kept this hidden. In a certain sense, Xie's twin martial souls were actually a bit weaker than true twin martial souls. This was because the Light Dragon Dagger and Shadow Dragon Dagger were originated from the same place and had very little differences between them. As a result, they did not complement one another, and their powers were only additive instead of multiplicative. The most crucial difference, however, was the fact that Xie needed to obtain soul rings for both of his martial souls whenever he hit a bottleneck preventing him from reaching the next rank. This was completely different from true twin martial souls where only one of them needed a soul ring to continue advancing, the other one could be saved to upgrade in the future. Naturally, no one else apart from him and his family knew this secret. Xie's first spirit soul was extremely compatible with him, but he knew that it would be impossible to find a spirit soul as compatible as his current one in the future. Despite his twin martial souls giving him an advantage in the early stages of cultivation, due to his average spiritual power, his growth would be restricted unless he had enough spiritual power to support spirit souls for both of his dragon daggers. The Spirit Ascension platform was one solution to his problems. The first thing he had to do was upgrade his metal spirit soul. If it reached the purple 1000-year level, then it would be able to provide him an additional soul ring. If it reached the black 10,000-year level, then there would be another one on top of that. The fewer spirit souls a soul master absorbed, the less spiritual power they would need to sustain them. Moreover, if his spirit soul was upgraded, then the soul skills it provided would be upgraded too. This was simply the best method to increase one's strength. For this reason, Xie's anticipation for the Spirit Ascension platform had also been the highest among the 5 students. Even after exploring the forest for a while, Xie had yet to encounter a single soul beast. His steps were light and his breathing weak as he carefully surveyed his surroundings, just waiting for a soul beast to appear at any moment. It would be best if a lone soul beast appeared. Even if he could only kill one, his spirit soul would still receive some benefits. Xie's eyes twinkled with nervousness and excitement. Huh! A strange feeling suddenly washed over his body. He dived forward without the slightest hesitation. Several dozen lights flew over him, just narrowly missing his head. He stood up with a powerful twist of his body. This attack. He was horrified to see dozens of pairs of twinkling scarlet eyes open up on the trees. The attacks had been from them. Plant-type soul beast, scarlet demon tree. This is bad. These trees appear in large groups. Compared to Zhong Yangzi, Xie was far more knowledgeable about soul beasts. At the very least, he wasn't one to recklessly attack a soul beast he couldn't identify. He didn't have any intention on fighting them. Instead, he rolled to the side and dashed away from them. Sure enough, the scarlet demon trees shot out rays of light at him just after he moved. Had he been any slower, he would have been turned into a pincushion and died. So close, so close. Xie was panting. Zizi. A screech was heard just before a yellow shadow shot straight at Xie. Xie hastily stopped and slashed out a light dragon blade at his charging opponent while veering off in another direction to escape. That whip-like yellow shadow twisted in the air and easily avoided the light dragon blade. A gigantic mouse taller than a man dug up from the ground. That yellow shadow was actually its tail. It swung its tail like a javelin piercing towards Xie's chest. It was a longtail mouse over 2 meters tall. This was a 100-year longtail mouse. Rather than fear, Xie was filled with joy at the sight of this mouse. He knew that this was a powerful loner-type soul beast that usually preyed on insects, but wasn't a great carnivore. It could launch shrewd attacks with its fickle tail, and was also equipped with a mouthful of steel-like teeth that could chew through uncommon metals. Xie kicked off a tree, suddenly shooting up into the air. He released a light dragon blade at the longtail mouse while his left hand waved slightly in a seamless manner. The longtail mouse swayed a little as it thrusted its tail at the light dragon blade. A ray of light flashed on the tip of its tail. The light dragon blade was split in half, sweeping right past the longtail mouse. The mouse was actually surprisingly fast and its leap exceptionally powerful as it quickly caught up to Xie. Right at that moment, the longtail mouse suddenly shrieked in pain. A bloody line burst from its body and its body was splattered. How could Xie let go of such a good opportunity? He exploded off of a tree trunk and into the air, spinning his body at the same time. With his light dragon dagger as the starting point, he dropped onto the longtail mouse like a drill. The longtail mouse's body was swallowed by the light dragon storm and turned into a splatter of blood in the blink of an eye. Xie and the longtail mouse's body landed on the ground at the same time. A ball of light emerged from the 100-year longtail mouse's body and moved to merge with Xie. Xie flicked his light dragon dagger happily, but he knew that he couldn't stay in the area for long, so he quickly ran off in a random direction. In this forest of soul beasts, the smell of blood was the easiest way to attract other soul beasts, especially carnivorous soul beasts. Naturally, he had only been able to kill the longtail mouse so quickly because he could launch a sneak attack with his shadow dragon dagger. His second attack with his light dragon blade had actually been used to mask the shadow dragon blade that had been quietly heading toward the mouse. It had been surprisingly effective, and with his light dragon storm prepared beforehand, he had been able to eliminate his opponent in one go. Bang, bang, bang. Before Xie even had the chance to run too far, muffled booms resounded from the earth. Xie was dumbstruck. That sound. Why does it sound so terrifying? Sun with rays. On top of a giant tree, Wang Jinsi was gasping for breath as his enlarged body began to return to normal. He had just fought a fierce battle. He had met a pack of 10-year wind wolves earlier. Although they weren't strong, they were fast and numerous. There had been over 20 wolves in the pack. If he didn't have the great strength and sturdy defenses of his transformation, then he likely wouldn't have made it out of the encounter in one piece. Unfortunately, his spirit soul didn't benefit much from the slaughter as the wolves were only 10-year-old beasts. His spirit soul was a bone spirit similar to Xie's metal spirit soul in that it had also been fused directly into his martial soul. He only had about 40% of his soul power left, while his physical strength was exhausted. For now, he had to rest and recover. What he wasn't aware of, however, was that a large figure was slowly descending toward him. Why does it seem a bit darker now? A peculiar feeling had crept into the back of Wang Jinsi's mind. He subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky but was shocked to find a person's face rapidly descending toward him. It was a beautiful woman's face. When she opened her mouth, though, a rows of sinister fangs were exposed. But what was even more terrifying to Wang Jinsi was the fact that this woman's face was actually on the stomach of a giant spider. This video will end here.